Do you ever wish your life was different? Well, maybe not different, but better. Maybe you have imagined what life would be like with a better job, or a better house, or improved health, or whatever the hell better means to you. The truth is, many people are worried and confused about how to live their lives because they don't know what's better for them and what to aim for. There's a sort of an existential dread that keeps on arching over our days. And what do people do when they're bored of this routine? We try to experience the extraordinary to shift our mental states. Maybe going on a solo trip, or dating someone new, or going on a hike, and things like that to just experience a different mindset. But once we return to the daily life, the extraordinary stays away. This is a never ending cycle of seeking the extraordinary. There's a lovely quote by G.K. Chesterton that I keep referring back to. It goes, "We should always endeavor to wonder at the permanent thing, not at the mere exception. We should be startled by the sun and not by the eclipse. We should wonder less at the earthquake and wonder more at the earth." How beautiful is that? What I prefer is a life where I enjoy the ordinary stuff, the daily life, the daily grind, and find the extraordinary in it so the ordinary becomes extraordinary for me. To do this, I thought I'll read a book on Zen habits last month to help me become more Zen like. It's called The Zen, The Art of Simple Living, which includes 100 daily practices from a Japanese Zen monk for a lifetime of calm and joy. Sounds very self-helpy, and 100 sounds like a lot of daily practices, and I agree with that. Zen has been receiving a lot of fame recently or in the past few decades, so I thought I'd give it a try. The book consists of 100 really short chapters, and the overall goal is to make subtle shifts in our habits so that become how we live, and those habits are a part of our daily life. But to be honest, out of those 100 habits, I think 80 were just our overrated worldly wisdom that all of us already know, but don't know how to apply in a life, or it's just not feasible to do that every freaking day or any time at all. It also felt like the author is speaking like my mom, asking me to behave in a certain way, which did not land well with me. The book could have been much shorter, and out of the 100, I think it could have just been 10 Zen habits. Some really average advice includes organize your desk, pause after every bite of eating, be a minimalist, arrange your room simply, and I mean, I already know all these things. There's some decent advice as well, but it's really hard to implement. But it just sounds good in theory. Like, don't blame and compare to others, don't fear change, be positive, have faith, make the most of life. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, anyways. It felt like a self help guru giving a very dull speech. But there's some good stuff as well, and today that's what I want to do. I want to talk about the 4 or 5 things that really stood out to me out of those 100 daily habits, and that I enjoyed reading about and trying to cultivate in my own life. The first one is make time for emptiness. The author says, in our everyday lives, do any of us really have time to think about nothing? Modern life is busier than ever, and so he asks us to try to make time for emptiness, and just trying clearing our mind and not being caught up in the things around us. Because when we try to do that, we will begin to notice the present moment, the subtle shifts in nature that are keeping us alive. And he says this is the first steps towards creating a simple life. And I kind of agree with him, because whatever that means for you, whether it's meditation, whether it's something else that keeps you not think about anything, or just try not to think about anything, I think that's a good exercise to just not be constantly thinking. The second is feel instead of think, or a bit similar. He says to hone our 5 senses. He asks us to try pick up a stone by the side of the road and touch it and sense in what it smells like. He says mountain stones smell like mountains, sea stones smell like sea, and which inspire us to take interest in details around us. Honing our senses will help us not miss even the slightest changes in the environment around us, whether that's physical environment or our mental environment. Then he says go visit a Zen garden and just spend a lot of time there, because there are healing powers within a Zen garden. The author himself is a Japanese Zen garden designer. He says the mastery of Zen state is expressed in a garden, and asks us to, instead of seeing the superficial beauty of the garden, to try and seeing the Zen mind it is imbued in. And once we feel integrated with the garden, we will not notice the passage of time. And I can't wait to visit a Zen garden. um, then he says, free yourself from money. The more you try to accumulate it, the more it gets away. We all know that. But the strange thing about money is also that the more we get attached to it, the more it eludes our grasps. Instead of thinking about money, he says we should concern ourselves with our higher purpose, our why and our what. And the money we need will ultimately find you. And I really hope it does for me and for you as well. The last thing, the 99th advice which is the most important, is contemplate how to die whenever you are confused how to live. Just as we contemplate how to live, we should contemplate how to die. Now, if you were told your life is going to end in 6 months, you would think how best to spend that time. But what if it were only a month or a week? What if it would end tomorrow? You will feel as you must not waste any moment. And that's true. Life happens in a blink of an eye. Have you ever spent a day just binge watching and then, like, in the evening realizing you didn't mean to waste so much time, but it just happened? Well, that's applicable in other things that we do in our lives too. Many people work for 10 years and then realize, well, what was I doing for those 10 years while I was not enjoying that work? Well, so we must do our best not to squander that blink of an eye that is given to us, and live life in a much more planned way. Yeah, that's it from this book. I know the last point was a bit grim, but I think it's important to appreciate the fact that we are mortal beings. I don't recommend reading the whole book because I covered the best parts of it, but there are many more books on Zen that I think you should check out, and if you do, let me know as well. Have a great day and enjoy reading. Cheers.